Hey, everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with the Morse Global Finance Podcast team. I'm John.
And I'm Tiffany.
And today, we're going to be looking at the Delaware Depository. This is something that sounds like it might just be for, billionaires and governments hiding all their gold. But
it's actually not.
It's actually not. There's some interesting stuff here that could be relevant to maybe our own portfolios.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a special trust company that specializes in storing precious metals, like your gold and silver, platinum, and palladium. And they're known for being really secure and reliable. They've been around for over 20 years.
Wow.
They've got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and even the New York Stock Exchange trusts them. So
Okay, that's impressive. Like right off the bat, that's a pretty good endorsement.
yeah, they're definitely the real deal.
All right. So we've got this company. It's got a great reputation. They're taking care of some of those valuable stuff in the world. But what do they actually do?
Well, they offer secure storage for individuals and institutions. And they've got specialized services for IRAs, too, which we can talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, IRAs are definitely something a lot of our listeners are going to be interested in.
For sure.
But before we get to that, how do they actually keep everything safe? I mean, we're not talking about, a little safe deposit box here.
Oh, right. Absolutely not. We're talking serious security here, multiple layers of it, starting with state-of-the-art systems like physical and electronic protection.
Oh.
And they don't stop there. They've got proprietary systems they've developed themselves,
Whoa.
along with really strict internal controls. And if that's not enough, they've got a $1 billion insurance policy from Lloyd's of London. So
$1 billion.
you can definitely rest assured.
All right, so I feel better already. You mentioned segregated storage. What does that mean exactly?
Oh, that's a great question. Segregated storage means that your metals are kept completely separate from everyone else's. It's basically like having your own private vault within their facility.
Okay, so you know exactly what you have and where it is. But wouldn't it just be easier and cheaper to keep your gold, in a safe at home? Why go through all this?
Well, that's what a lot of people think, but Delaware Depository offers a lot more than just a safe place to keep your stuff. They're approved by major exchanges like CME and ICE.
Oh, wow.
Which means they meet really high standards. They also give you detailed tracking and reporting for all your holdings. And their team has over 200 years of combined experience handling precious metals.
So you're not just getting a safe, you're getting, a whole team of experts.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, you mentioned something about Delaware being a good place for this kind of thing.
Yeah, Delaware is actually really interesting when it comes to precious metals. There's no sales tax on them there.
Really?
Yeah, and their facilities are away from the risks you might find in a big city, Plus, there's less political volatility to worry about.
Okay, so not only is it super secure, but it could actually save you money.
Potentially, yes.
All right, now let's get back to those IRAs. A lot of our listeners are going to want to know how this all works for their retirement savings.
Well, the good news is that Delaware Depository is completely IRA eligible.
Oh, perfect.
And they follow all the IRS regulations, which is super important for anyone who wants to go this route. You want to make sure everything's legit.
Right, of course. So how does the process work?
Well, they work directly with custodians who make sure that everything is legal and follows the IRS rules.
Gotcha. So they're like the referees, making sure everything's fair.
Exactly.
And you mentioned that they partner with some of the top Gold IRA companies.
Yeah, and that can be a big advantage because it means you could potentially get better rates.
Okay, so you're getting the security of Delaware Depository, plus potentially a better deal through these Gold IRA companies.
Exactly.
Now, which companies are we talking about here?
Well, some of the big names include Goldco, Augusta Precious Metals, American Hartford Gold, Birch Gold Group,
Okay.
Noble Gold Investments.
I've heard of a few of those.
Yeah, they're some of the most reputable companies in the industry.
So if those companies trust Delaware Depository, it's got to be a pretty good sign, right?
Absolutely. They wouldn't risk their reputation on anything less.
Okay, so we've talked about their security, the benefits of being in Delaware, and how they work with IRAs.
Yeah.
But how do people actually manage their accounts?
Well, they've got a really user-friendly online platform where you can see all your holdings, track transactions, and basically do everything you need to do.
Oh, that's great.
It's super easy to set up, but if you want to add any new accounts, you might have to give them a quick call for security purposes.
Right. Makes sense. Better safe than sorry, especially when we're talking about this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
All right, so to recap, Delaware Depository offers top-notch security. They've got special services for IRA investors. They're trusted by some of the biggest names in the precious metals world. And they're actually pretty accessible, even for individual investors.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, in this current economic climate, could adding precious metals to your portfolio and keeping them safe in a place like Delaware Depository give you that extra level of stability and diversification that you might be looking for?
It's definitely something to think about. I mean, with all the volatility we're seeing,
Right.
and precious metals are often seen as a safe haven during times like these.
Exactly. They tend to hold their value well when other things are going down.
So it's not just about protecting your wealth, but potentially growing it too.
That's right. And when you've got a facility like Delaware Depository, keeping everything secure and well managed, it becomes a much more attractive option.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I do want to dig a little deeper into the history and performance of gold, specifically as a safe haven,
Okay,
because,
let's do it. If you look back, gold has actually done better than the stock market during some pretty big recessions.
oh, wow.
Like in the 1970s when things were really rough.
Well, yeah.
Or when the dot-com bubble burst in the early 2000s.
Right.
And even during the 2008 financial crisis, gold held strong, sometimes even went up in value.
So it's not just like a feeling or something. There's actual data to back it up.
Exactly. That's why a lot of investors turn to gold when they want to spread out their investments and reduce risk.
Especially when things are uncertain, right?
Exactly.
It's almost like an insurance policy for your money, you know?
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah. It's not about getting rich quick, but having something stable when everything else is going crazy.
Exactly.
Now, earlier we were talking about collateral custody services, and that sounded kind of technical.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little more? I think some of our listeners who are really into finance would be interested in that.
Okay, so imagine you're a big institution, like a hedge fund, and you need to borrow a lot of money.
Uh-huh.
Instead of selling your gold, which can take forever and be really complicated, you can use it as collateral through Delaware Depository.
Oh.
So you get the money you need without having to actually sell your gold.
So it's like you're using your gold to get a loan, but you still own it.
Exactly. It's a pretty smart way to use your gold to make big financial moves.
Yeah, I can see how that would be useful for bigger players.
For sure.
Okay, so we've covered their security, the advantages of Delaware, how they work with IRAs, even these special services for big institutions. Is there anything else our listeners should know about Delaware Depository? Anything we haven't touched on yet?
Well, we've talked a lot about the technical stuff, but one thing I really like about them is their transparency.
What do you mean?
They really go all out to give you detailed reports about everything they do.
So it's not just about trusting them. You can actually see what they're doing.
Exactly.
Okay.
They get audited by independent third parties to make sure they're meeting the highest standards for security, accounting, all that stuff.
Wow.
They even have an SSAE 18 SOC1 Type 1 certification, which is a big deal in the finance world.
So they're not just saying they're secure and transparent. They're actually proving it.
Exactly.
That's impressive.
And for investors who are, putting their hard-earned money into a depository,
Right.
that kind of transparency is really important.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who want to learn more, we've got links to Delaware Depository's website and some other resources in our show notes.
Yeah, definitely check those out.
Now, here's something for everyone to think about. As we're going through these uncertain times,
Right.
it's worth thinking about how precious metals, stored securely somewhere like Delaware Depository,
Yeah.
could fit into your overall financial plan.
Yeah.
Could it be that extra layer of protection and diversification that you're looking for?
It's a good question to ask yourself.
Absolutely. This has been a really insightful look into Delaware Depository.
It has.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
You're welcome.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us.